the situation this year, I think it was at Southern Oregon where you guys had the fire and everybody kind of came together and said, okay, we're not going to race anymore. There was a Cali Dirt video posted of that, which eventually ended up getting taken down, but it was a really interesting look into how those things happened. And I gave you a lot of kudos on my show because I loved the way you handled it. You were like, hey man, like this just isn't for me tonight. I'm not going to race.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a lot of people kind of followed you that direction. Um, but I wonder why that doesn't happen more often. Like, how come, even at the national tour level, why don't drivers show up to races and they don't feel safe or something isn't right? Like, why don't they be like, hey, like, I'm just not going to race tonight. Like, this just isn't the right thing. Like, and I have this conversation, with a few friends, and it's like, I feel like you guys have a lot more power than you realize. And I don't know why you don't wield it more often.
So I think there's levels to this, and for me, quite honestly, racing was never my job. It's never been my lifeline. So when I look at a guy like, let's say, Cole Macedo, it makes sense for him to tough it out and go race because that's how he's making his living, and that's how he's gonna continue on in his pursuit of becoming a professional race car driver. Whereas to me, I have two very important things waiting for me at home, and those are my daughters and my wife, and then my business. So I have a lot of things that mean, I would say, more to me than one night of racing on an unsafe condition. And I also look at things, and I've always looked at it this way: every driver has to go home to their family. My dad was a professional drag racer, and growing up, we saw people lose their lives. People very close to me, friends, fathers, friends of mine have passed. Jason Johnson, I was there when he lost his life, and the year before, I went to Australia and raced with him night in and night out, and became buddies with him. So what I look at, from a standpoint is, yes, we have fans in the stands. Yes, we need to put on a show, but at some point, our safety has to matter more than the risk. I'm very vocal when it comes to that stuff, and that's why I think a lot of promoters out here on the West Coast probably want to hang me, just because I'm so vocal about it. If we have a racetrack that's dark, or we have a racetrack that's rough, or we have fire crew guys in tank tops and flip flops, I'm just not going to risk my life. And there's guys that are going to do that, and they're gladiators. And I don't know how much of the video actually got out because I didn't see it, but I did see your video, and I appreciate the kudos. But one thing I remember saying was, if you guys want to race tonight, God bless you, you're gladiators. But I'm not going to die here, and I don't want anyone else to die here. And I think some guys, maybe they weigh the pros and cons as, oh, I'm a race car driver, and if something happens, it happens. But I've been injured in this sport. I've been burned. I've broken my back. I've broken my leg. I've had concussions. I've crashed enough and been hurt enough and laid in a hospital bed enough to know that puts your entire family through so much stress. And then you add so much cost to having to pay those medical bills off. And not every time is the benevolent fund going to come bail you out and be able to fund anything. So quite honestly, I think that the lack of drivers standing up is because they're stupid and they think that one race matters more than their life, and they're wrong. That's why I've always been pretty vocal about it. And I'm luckily I'm on the board with the NARC series, and I think that Bud Kading and I have a very similar view when it comes to this stuff. So a lot of times we're in unison with it. So I just think that this world of sprint car racing is a beautiful world, and we don't need to injure any drivers. And I think of my good friend Chase Johnson. I was teammates with him at Chili Bowl for 2 or 3 years. He's one of my close friends. We share a birthday. His middle name is Dominic, and he's fighting like hell to be able to walk again. And he does dream to get back in a race car, but who knows if that's ever going to happen from and it wasn't anyone's fault, but from a race that wasn't unsafe. All those things were right. They had a good safety crew. They had a good race car. They had good safety equipment, and he still is fighting for now 4 months, 5 months. This is not a joke. This is not a toy. This is something that needs to be taken serious. And I think a lot of our drivers in the sport, especially the younger guys, need to look at it a little bit differently. And I think going back to our previous topic, when guys start looking at it as we're racing humans and we're racing fathers and sons and brothers, then I think you can start looking at it a little bit as to why some guys race with a little bit more respect than others do.